Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome everyone to this Ghost Kitchen webinar presented by Gordon Food Service and powered by Back of House. Back of House is a solutions marketplace for restaurant operators that has both restaurant solutions, services, partners, as well as peer reviews and a lot of great resources that are unbiased, written and aimed to help restaurant operators accelerate finding the right solutions for their business. I'm Bethany Zack, Director of Internal Innovations at Relish Works, an innovation hub out of Chicago, Illinois. And we've come together today with a panel of both operators and service providers that are executing or enabling ghost kitchens throughout different parts of the country. Our goal today is to really break down this opportunity space that is becoming a really hot topic in the industry. And we're going to help out our listeners break down different ways to approach this space, what makes it a great opportunity, and what everyone should know before really getting started. I'm excited to talk to each of you because ghost kitchens that have been around and growing, but the pandemic has really shined a light on ghost kitchens as operators look for new ways to serve customers and be profitable. So I want to start by introducing our really great panel that we have here today with us. So I have Mark Choi, President of Ghost Kitchen Brands, Paul Schiffelt, Chef and Owner-Operator of Robert Spencer Hospitality, and Amina Jelani, COO and co-founder at Sociavore. Great. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to start with a general definition of ghost kitchens, and then I want to ask each of you to tell me how this changes for each of you, because you're each coming at this with really different vantage points. So here it is. A ghost kitchen is a space without a dining room, a kitchen optimized for delivery. But I know it's never quite that simple. So Paul, I'm going to start with you. I'm hoping that maybe you can tell us what ghost kitchens mean to you and to your business, and what interested you in this space.
I mean, it's interesting. I'd heard about the concept probably 4 or 5 years ago, and a colleague of mine was really interested in making it happen here in Edmonton, but I just felt like we weren't quite ready for that sort of concept yet. But I mean, a ghost kitchen today means to me a means of survival. We had successful restaurants that were operating, at full capacity and busy constantly, and then literally with the flick of a switch, we were put into lockdown and had no source of revenue and had to find a way to adapt. I mean, we were doing, I would call it finer dining, charcuterie boards and, seared salmon and roast duck and things like that. I mean, dishes that didn't really translate well to takeout. And we had this amazing, beautiful 2,000 square foot restaurant doing nothing. And for me, it was a matter of having to make a decision on what can we do to bring something to customers and keep our doors open, or keep the lights on, I guess would be a better way to describe it. And this was an opportunity for us to, toy with concepts that were easy for takeout, easy for delivery. The ingredients traveled well, and to still connect with our customers.
Great, thanks. Okay, Amina, I'm gonna turn to you because Sociavore is working with a lot of brands like Paul's and probably coming up against some of the similar problems and the issues that he mentioned. So you have this 10,000 foot view of what is happening with independent restaurants. Can you tell us a little bit about what interesting things you're seeing in this space and how you're working with brands like Paul's and what you're seeing operators try in this virtual space?
Yeah, definitely. So I think with us, we work with a whole gamut of restaurants. So they are, we have fine dining restaurants that prior to the pandemic were really focused on the in-restaurant guest experience. We have quick service restaurants using us. And what we've been seeing is kind of 2 buckets of ghost kitchen setup. So one example is where you have a brand that's really well known within a community, and then what they've done is created a sub brand that they are promoting to their customers that they have already, and within that sub brand it's kind of known, it's open for curbside pickup and also delivery as well, and really kind of embracing that sub brand, creating like a unique product or a unique kind of menu that they're pushing through that sub brand. So we've seen that approach, and the other approach we've seen is more of a distinct, really siloed brand setup where it's completely separate to what the operator is doing. Prior to the pandemic or prior, they would have been focusing on a specific niche, and then they wanted to try something that was completely separate. So kind of setting up that unique brand, and then primarily using delivery as a means to get that to the end user. So it's been really interesting to see that. And then, from our standpoint as well, I think with, I think the definition of a ghost brand is you use delivery as that means to get the food to the end user. But we're seeing a lot of brands, setting up curbside pickup and takeout, especially if they're in a more of a suburban setting where people are used to driving to pick up the food. So it's been really interesting to see, these two types of ghost kitchen setups on, with our customer base.
Great. Thank you. Now, Mark, to you, you're in the ghost kitchen space as well, but kind of on a different side of things. You're acting as an aggregator for brands who want to become more accessible. And so for this audience, can you share a little bit about what you think the opportunity is for ghost kitchen and aggregators and independent operators?
Sure, happy to. Our business model is slightly different from some of the other models and from Paul's specifically. We got into this business specifically for delivery. Our kitchens were built for that. Our model is, we're the only ghost kitchen to partner with national brands like Cinnabon, like Quiznos, like Cheesecake Factory Bakery, and at the same time be the operator of all our kitchens. So we aren't landlords renting, we aren't landlords building and renting out kitchens. We aren't just operators of local brands. We build kitchens and we operate all the national brands. That's allowed us to just focus on operational excellence, save some money on capital, and just as importantly, save money on labor as well. From a customer's perspective, we're almost like a virtual food court. Customers can mix and match between all our brands, internal or national brands, on one order for one delivery for one fee, which is tough to find. For our brand partners, we've given them access to our distribution network. A lot of brands can't do a ghost kitchen on their own. There's just not enough volume there on their own. But by partnering with us, we both get to leverage all their brand equity, and actually all the brand equity of all our brands put together, for visibility that they could never do on their own. We can even work with local brands or local operators to give them instant access to all our markets, nationally overnight. So again, it's a much different model. It works well for our third-party delivery partners as well. Because we have so many brands and menus, it drives up the average ticket. By putting them all together, every time we add a brand, it's incremental sales, and it gives the customers another option. I was just looking at some of our data, and at our Burlington location on Sunday this past weekend, we did over 150 orders at about $25 a ticket. That's a pretty good volume right now. And again, we don't rely on any one brand, and we just want to give consumers as much choice as possible to get whatever it is they like.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, you guys. I think there's a lot of different ways from your conversation and what you just said that operators can really execute, based on whether or not they have capacity in their kitchen. Like, sounds like Paul, you reworked your menu, but you wanted to base it out of your kitchen and use your kitchen and your team to execute. You can tackle it that way. But for other operators who need a place to just dedicate to off-premise solutions, and partners like Mark are another way in which these can be executed, where it's taken offsite and executed in more of these, like, I would say, kind of commissary style facilities. Is that a fair statement, Mark, your description? Yeah. So, I think what I'm hearing is, like, operators should kind of be asking themselves, can I do this within my own operation? Do I have the capacity or do I not? And that may be one starting place for operators to think about ways to execute. And then, Amina, you can kind of come in and help think about, based on like what the brand is and what the style, how to position and how to take it to their customers as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to dial in a little bit on the day-to-day of executing these different concepts. So Paul, I'm going to turn to you again. You've been in this, you're learning daily. I'm curious what you've learned about yourself through this process and what you feel operators need to ask themselves as leaders before stepping into this space. Like, what do they need to be prepared for as they jump into a ghost kitchen?
Yeah, I mean it's a really different animal, right? I mean, we've spent a lot of years. I'm a chef first, and it's always been fancy plating and presentation is so important. And now you're changing your mindset to focus on efficiency, speed. How do we maintain quality while getting food to travel? What is our delivery range? What does our packaging look like? How do we still deliver that quality and that experience that we're trying to, but doing it in a bag essentially? So there's a lot of factors to play in. I mean, there's a lot of great comments already. In our case, it was here we have a restaurant that we're paying rent on, we're paying utilities, we have staff. We don't need to go necessarily source a space. We need to generate revenue to kind of keep the lights on. Whereas some people might be looking at this from a different approach, that I don't need to pay premium rent to get into a prime location. I can purchase or rent a commissary kitchen that has better access to routes for traveling to get around the city, and pay a little bit less rent and not have that dining room and the tables and chairs and the lights and all the fancy fixtures. And it's a way for them to get into the restaurant industry at a little bit maybe more of an affordable approach or entry point. The other thing I think that's interesting as well too is it's a really great opportunity to test concepts. I mean, for us, we've rolled out, we had a Woodshed Burgers location already. So we rolled it out at our Southside location as a concept, and it was so successful. I actually ended up opening up a brick and mortar in the middle of the pandemic. But we've also now done another concept. So we've done barbecue, and it's been really successful, and it's a nice way for us to test the marketplace and find out what works and what doesn't. And to, if that concept becomes stale, then let's shut down for a week, refresh, and let's do a taco shop or a pizza joint, or like you can continue to evolve and change, which is really kind of nice. Whereas when you're workshop eatery, when you're a fine dining restaurant, you sort of have certain expectations. Your customers have expectations, and it's hard to just turn the lights off one day and completely change that and still have the following. So
yeah, I think the thing that keeps sticking out in my mind as I hear you and as I've heard others talk about ghost kitchens is like a big thing that people do need to ask themselves is, am I willing to rethink everything I've kind of thought about in this space? And am I willing to undo the way we've always done it and try new things and manage kind of that change management and just in general, just taking that on as part of your.
And that was really important for us. I mean, we had worked for 5 years to build a brand and a reputation as Workshop Eatery, and my name was attached to it, and whatever we did out of that kitchen was still going to be associated with Workshop Eatery's quality and standards. So it was important for me to make sure that we could deliver something that still, maybe it's not that on a fancy plate and not service at the table, but we can still deliver an experience that they're going to enjoy. And when they think of Workshop Eatery down the road, if we ever get to return to that, they haven't lost faith in our brand, right? So that was really important for us.
Yeah, that's a great point too. That's good. Thanks, Paul. So Mark, I'm going to ask the same question of you. You work with a lot of brands and many leaders in this space. I'm curious, after listening to Paul, like what similarities are you seeing in those that are willing to try this space, and what are they like? What does it take to be successful as you kind of take this big view of it too?
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with both, you and Paul. The ghost kitchen and third-party delivery industry is still sort of in its infancy. What makes partnerships with our brand successful is like you guys said, is everybody's a flexibility and adaptability and willing to understand that things are changing and to be open-minded. What may or may not have worked, 3, 5, 10 years ago may or may not work now. And so, again, having everybody buy into the fact that you need to adapt your business, you need to change your business, you need to be open-minded, is going to be key to being successful. Paul talked about, he just opened up a brick and mortars location, in this pandemic. We've had to do similar. We've adapted our model. I mean, although we started doing delivery only many years ago, our brands were happy with that. Based on the feedback we got from our customers, we've started taking locations in high traffic areas as well now. We just opened up, in Smart Center. We have a deal with Walmart. So, we've taken our business model and we've tried to adapt it to, again, whatever the consumer is demanding. And, we've taken it now from delivery only, again, to be able to service customers wherever they may be it, well, not working right now, but if they're shopping or if they're out and about, we want to be there for them too. And so all our brand partners that we've been dealing with have been good partners. They've all been very flexible, and they've all, worked with us to adapt their operations, their menus, their marketing, even their real estate selection, because they understand it's a new day in the industry, and if you don't adapt, then you're going to get left behind. So again, I wholeheartedly agree with what you and Paul were talking about in terms of flexibility and adaptability, and being open-minded.
That's great. There's a couple of good questions that have come in as we've talked. I want to ask this one from Kristen. There's a question here in terms of what's the difference in your minds around an operator's normal takeout delivery model versus a ghost kitchen model? And so I'm going to ask maybe this of Amina and Paul and get your take on this particular question.
So I think typically what I've seen work well in terms of the ghost kitchen model is, a defined brand, which has a defined kind of menu that is really, catered towards takeout and delivery. I've seen a lot of working with a lot of restaurants. Many of them are doing, typical online ordering right now for curbside takeout. And, they haven't really made a lot of changes to their typical menu. But with the ghost kitchen model, it's kind of primarily focused on delivering that kind of takeout / delivery concept to the guest. So really, focusing on what items travel well. From what we've seen work best on our platform, really looking at that brand and kind of embracing that brand and creating a unique menu that's around that brand. And so that's what I think the difference is between more of a model focused on, delivering that ghost kitchen versus, turning on typical online or typical takeout and delivery for your concept.
That's great. Thanks. Paul, anything you would add to that?
No, I mean, I feel like that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I guess the only comment would be, I think it allows you that flexibility to have a few concepts. I mean, if you're not dealing with customers dining in and that sort of thing, if you can set yourself up and organize yourself, there's no reason why you couldn't be operating, a burger restaurant, a taco shop, and a pizza joint all out of the same kitchen in the same evening. So now you're targeting that customer who, one, you can get, mom and dad want pizza and the son wants a burger and the daughter wants tacos. You can get the whole household in one sitting. Or you've got diversity where they can come and see you on Monday, they can come and see you on Thursday, and then they're coming back on Saturday because they're not eating the same thing. They're eating a few different things. But that said, there's some challenges there on how you set up your kitchen to be organized and efficient and make sure your product is being used efficiently across those brands, right, or across those concepts.
Yeah, those are great tips too. More great questions coming in, and I think we'll circle back to some of these when we get into some questions about menu development and marketing. So I just, for everybody that's watching, please know we see your questions and appreciate them. I'm going to go back to Amina really quickly too, just to kind of go back to some of our earlier conversation. As we talked about what it takes to be successful, Amina, you're, again, as you work with many different operators in the space, what are some of the hurdles that you're also seeing operators come up against that you think they should be aware of?
So primarily, like with Socialboard, we power a lot of independents. So with the ones that are kind of trying out the ghost kitchen model, generating demand for that new brand is something that takes a lot of work. What we've seen work well is kind of leveraging your existing consumer base, creating a brand that really would be sold well to that consumer base, and then kind of using an omni-channel approach. So, with that defined brand, really trying to make sure it's authentic so that people find it appealing, especially in that market you're trying to target. And then, setting up online ordering. So, be it your own online ordering where you're able to get all the data and see all of that consumer data, and using kind of third party as just one piece of the entire omni-channel. So more of a marketing channel. That said, like what we've seen working well as well is kind of setting up, defined social media channels that are, defined to that brand, and then trying to engage your current customer base so that they, know about that new brand and follow. So it does take a lot of work in order to create, the demand if you're trying to do it in a way that you're trying to, leverage who you already have in your market. The other thing too is if you're leveraging the third-party delivery apps for, getting that delivery to the end user. Location is also pretty key. So we've seen it. We've actually seen it with our own family restaurant. Basically, being able to have that 5-kilometer radius so that you're actually reaching your customers. And if your location isn't within where your market is, that can be a challenge. So I'd say those key things are what we've seen. But if you're able to do it in an authentic way, and if you're able to test and learn, kind of what Paul and Mark have also said, and you're taking that approach that you're going to be flexible and you're going to kind of take that data and kind of adjust things. We've seen that really kind of benefit the operator, and they create some really awesome brands that are compelling and that are going to continue, in existence and be part of their whole brand story. So it's been cool in that sense.
That's great. Thanks. I do kind of want to just dial in a little bit. I mean, marketing is definitely an area where I think a lot of operators do, like you mentioned, this is a big hurdle. And we continue to hear this too, as we talk to operators and just scan this model. And Paul and Mark, please jump in here too. I'm just curious, what are some good best practices that we could just leave some of our, audience with in terms of if you're testing a new concept that doesn't have brand equity and doesn't have awareness, what's the first thing? What are some of these best practices that you were successful with, or you've seen others be successful with, that you could share?
So what I've seen is, setting up, even using something like Fiverr to create a logo, to create some of those things that define the brand, and, get them online, create a quick website, make sure your menu is up there, create Instagram and TikTok channels if that's where you want to be and that's where your consumers are, to really kind of embrace the brand and get it out there. So I think that's been something that I've seen works well, as opposed to just solely placing it on an Uber Eats or a DoorDash. So making sure that it has that whole story and that people can find it online and virtually go to that space has been something that I've seen has worked and has also helped with generating, demand as well.
That's great. Yeah, those are good tips. Paul or Mark, anything that you would, you've tried this, you've tested this, what would you suggest to our audience?
From our end, while we have a number of, national brands in our portfolio, certainly we do try to develop our own internal brands to complement that. A big piece for us is, there's two parts. One is developing the menu. I don't proclaim to be a chef by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I know what I like to eat. So we've had to, we use the local chef here His name is Hemant Begwani of Amaya fame. And so he's created a number of menus for us and built out the supply chain and all that. And that's great. But to Amina's, thoughts before, we do need to do some marketing there to make it look like a big brand. And I think for us, a lot of the focus has been on the packaging, because as good as the food is, if it just shows up in a styrofoam container, it looks like a small brand, and people often, sort of eat with their eyes, so to speak. So we've had to invest some time and energy and money into how we present that food, that it comes hot, it tastes like we intended it to taste, and it looks professional in terms of, however the bag, the box, stickers, any branding we do. So for sure, for all of those internal brands where we don't have the support of a national chain, we've had to spend, sort of time and effort to make the product look as good as it tastes.
Great. Paul, I just want to give you, opportunity to, if you have anything to add, or we can build on. Yeah.
I'll jump in. I mean, as an independent guy, I mean, I'm facing that fight all the time where you're trying to get the same recognition as the big players. I mean, for me, I'm fortunate in that, I'm a fairly big fish in this pond here in Edmonton. And when I do something new, there's usually a lot of buzz and somebody's paying attention. But if you're a new guy trying to get into the marketplace, and this isn't like where you can invite people down for dinner to try stuff out and, get some buzz going. My advice would probably be to who are the influencers in your network? Who are the influencers in your community? We live in the world of today's generation doesn't necessarily respond to ads in the same way we used to, but they'll listen to people that they trust, right? So who are the celebs? Who are the local people? Can you get a local athlete? Can you get a news broadcaster? Can you get that food in their hand and have them talking about your product themselves rather than it being advertisement? You can find that way to infiltrate your community with some of the influencers. I think you'll have better success in getting the brand out there and getting it recognized, because otherwise there's a lot of new concepts. I mean, everybody's doing a new concept right now, and then with the big players, with the Uber Eats and the Skip the Dishes and those sort of guys, I mean, they're pushing the darts hard. If you're an independent, you're lost in stuff right here.
Yeah, that's great. You guys hit on a lot of good things. I heard really making sure that you figure out your menu, like what experience are you trying to deliver, and then carrying that through from your logo to your packaging to your online presence, and then finding people that can be your voice out in the community. And I probably missed some great things too, but those were, I think, really good tips. One question that came in from the audience that I want to ask Mark, as you brought up packaging, is do you find each concept needs its own unique packaging per brand, or is it okay to use the same containers across brands? Thoughts on just as you test new concepts, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so every time we bring a brand on board, be it national or internal, it probably has its own unique packaging needs. But for sure, when we have many brands, we try to economize and use as much of the same packaging that we can. We've created our own bags, for example, which have all our brands on the outside of the bags. And so we use those for any order that comes in. Some of the plastic containers, again, we try to use and try to source as flexible a container as possible so that we can use it for as many brands as possible, because as we'll talk about later, I'm sure the margins are tight for third-party delivery or any delivery business. So where we can save time and money and effort, like in packaging, we do our best to work with manufacturers to find something that fits best for as many brands as possible.
Yeah, I think you guys have brought this up a couple of times about just optimizing for efficiency and reducing costs, especially as you start up and test new things. So I think that's a good point. I want to go back. We talked a lot about menu development, and we just touched on it, I should say. I want to start to dive a little bit more into menu development. And there's some good questions from the audience too that we'll come back to that I think really relate well to this topic. So Paul, you're a chef. You've talked a lot about redeveloping your menu throughout this. So I'm curious, what is key to developing a virtual brand menu and being profitable? And what would you add to some of the things that we've already talked about today, just in terms of efficiency and optimization and finding the things that will deliver or travel well? What do you think operators have to get right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same rules of running a successful restaurant apply. With that said, for us, it all starts with when I'm sitting at the table, talking with the team about what we're gonna do. It's what kind of experience can we create in that person's living room or at their kitchen table, at home? What is our delivery radius? What does that food look like when it reaches that delivery radius? What happens if the customer or the driver hasn't picked it up for an extra 10 minutes? What's the quality of food going to be like? So we take a lot of that into consideration when we're preparing a menu. We're looking for things that, okay, well, the guy left it in his car for 20 minutes longer than he thought because he had to stop at the grocery store, then he had to get gas. So he's going to throw it in the oven when he gets home and it's still going to taste good. So we're thinking about those sort of things. And I'm, trying to wrap my head around the worst case scenario, so that when they get the food and they open it up, it still tastes delicious and it's still a great experience. And then I'm mindful of, balancing that menu like I always would, so right now we're doing a barbecue concept. So, our meats our costs in them are higher. They're probably 45 or 50%, food cost. But the menu is balanced with a lot of great things like coleslaw and mac and cheese and cornbread and things like that are closer to like a 15 or 18% food cost. So as long as they're getting a couple of meats and a couple of sides, I'm kind of running into where I need to maintain my cost of goods. The other nice thing that you're factoring in as well too is, you can run a little higher on those sort of things, the food cost side of things, because your labor side is a little bit more manageable because you don't have that front of house service staff. You don't have the hostess and the bartender and the server and all those sort of things. Realistically, you've got an expediter who's assembling your boxes and making sure everything's packed up, and then you've got delivery drivers. And if they're efficient and they're organized and you're using your system efficiently, you can be saving labor dollars. We've actually found our burger concept seems to be more efficient with us operating with curbside takeout and delivery than it was when we were at dine-in, which is really, it's kind of been eye-opening for us. And if we continue growing that brand, we'll focus on smaller restaurant footprints and more neighborhoods that can really handle takeout and delivery.
That's great. No, those are some really great insights. Mark, anything you want to, add just based on some of the things that you're seeing and your experience in this space too?
Sure. For sure, delivery is expensive. And as Paul said, something we're always mindful of is our labor cost. And so we've tried to do different things to bring the labor cost, down. In our kitchens, even though we might have 20 brands, all our staff is cross-trained, so they can, execute any brand that whenever an order comes in. As well, even though we've started to take locations where we do have walk-in traffic, we tried to reduce the labor required there because we use this technology as much as possible. So in the front of house, we have kiosks. So there's no, hi, Paul, how are you? What would you like today? It's all done through a touchscreen kiosk, a 55-inch touchscreen kiosk. And all those orders go straight from the kiosk back to, our proprietary software allows it to go back to whatever station in the kitchen is preparing that menu. So again, to try to save on some labor there from going back and forth, from printing up tickets, we use technology, for everything because, as Paul said, margins are tight, delivery costs are high. So where we can with food costs and especially with labor, our two controllables, we try to do the best we can to bring those costs down.
Great. That's good. Thanks. I'm going to jump over to some of our audience questions that we've had to come in about menus. There was one about offering alcohol through some of these models. So I don't know if anybody's tried this. Does this fall in, like, what kind of license is required? Does anybody have any experience in the alcohol space with these models?
Yeah, I would say a real key with that for sure is to make sure that you're working with your state or provincial liquor commission. Here we have the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission to understand the laws. A lot of them have changed and become more flexible in recent months to try to help restaurants and businesses survive. For us, they've actually laxed the laws so we can sell alcohol to the point now where we can even sell pre-made cocktails and that sort of thing. It's a nice add-on. We'll add a 4-pack of beer to, a burger combo or a barbecue combo. We'll add, cocktail pairings or a bottle of wine to things that we're doing. It's a nice upsell. I mean, and we're typically, we're not making the same margins we would have when we were doing it as dine-in, but there's a lot less labor. Take a bottle of wine, throw $5 on it, and send it out, and you've made the $5. So there's some opportunity there to get your ticket sales up a little bit and generate a little bit of profit. And really, there's not a lot of labor or cost associated with doing that. You're just sitting on inventory. So it's a great way for us. I mean, we do, as I said, game night and things like that. We do a lot of combos where we add a 4-pack of beer or that sort of thing. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd agree with Paul. In Ontario, they've relaxed the laws as well, and so a number of our locations will be starting to sell beer and alcohol soon. We don't have the same cocktail opportunities as you do, Paul, but for sure we want to explore that, because as you know, it's all incremental sales that we're not capturing, so we might as well capture that. We're even going to start our own internal brand of beer called Ghost Beer, again, to try to take advantage of some of the relaxation of those laws.
I've seen that too, like from our side, that to kind of up that ticket size, that people are definitely selling alcohol, and they're doing some creative things like at-home cocktail kits and adding that as an add-on, and lots of them are like, if they're doing a pizza concept, they're readily available with a whole bunch of different craft beers. So it's definitely something that we've seen, and that they have relaxed the laws here in Ontario where I'm sitting, and it's been something that's been really helpful during these hard times for the operators that we work with.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's another good question that came in that I want to ask you guys too, from Kent McDonald. As you guys were talking about kind of tracking the profitability of your different concepts and understanding, your costs that are associated, and as you move forward, especially, his question was about like, how are you tracking the revenue centers when there are multiple concepts within a single kitchen? Curious how you guys are doing that today.
For us, it's been very challenging for the technology side and the POS. I mean, we have 18 kitchens, 20 menus at each, 4 delivery platforms for each menu. So it's a lot of sales, a lot of data to keep track of. And, we haven't been able to find a partner that's been willing to, or that's been able to have as much flexibility as we need. So we ended up creating our own technology. We have our own tech company that we purchased, called Mentum Technology. And so they develop all our software for us to try to integrate with all the platforms, integrate with all the brands, integrate with all the distributors. We do a lot of times think of ourselves as a technology company just as much as a food company, because it's been, all aspects of the technology have been, for us, very challenging. So we're always looking, but technology is and developing our own is a huge piece of what we're doing in the future.
That's great. Amina or Paul, anything to add here as well? I'm curious too. Amina, if Sociavore is thinking about this or has a way to help operators with this too within your service.
So in terms of kind of what we've seen, what operators are doing, if they have a distinct brand with that, with us, like we do power a lot of online ordering within our platform. Basically, that goes into, the point of sale. Right now, we do work with some order aggregators as well. So that really helps with simplifying kind of ops in the kitchen. But what we're finding is right now kind of distinct brands. We work closely with Square as well, so that they have really awesome reporting, and that really has been helpful for the operators as they kind of are managing and looking at the data that's coming out of all the brands that they set up. So that's kind of what I've seen on our side.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna transition into delivery here. So we've talked a lot about delivery. We've talked about how delivery can, eat into our costs. This is not a new problem for operators by any means, but it is essential for virtual brands. And, it can take anywhere from 15 to 30% of your profits. So Paul and Mark, I'm curious, You guys are both attacking delivery in very different ways for your brands, and I'm curious if you can both share how you're doing this. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to maybe go first and just talk about some of the partnerships in the space and how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Delivery is expensive. As you said, with third-party platforms, it can eat up to 30%. That said, for us, they do provide an essential service. I mean, they do attract customers, payment process. They handle delivery too, and so I think that'll always be, the core of what we do and how we reach some of our customers. But at the same time, we're trying to move those customers into different ways which might have a better profit margin for us, either through our own internal delivering or through ordering online for pickup through our website, our QR code, our app, or finally to get them to walk into our stores. And anytime we can move somebody away from, again, one of the third-party platforms to walking in, we put that money in our pocket. So we do a lot of marketing to all the deliveries that do go out, letting them know that we have other options to get to us. But at the same time, I don't think third-party delivery in the short term is going away at all. Hopefully over time, as more and more companies get in, or as more and more restaurants get into it, use some peak and bring those costs. But I think the high costs in general, they're not going anywhere, and you have to look for other opportunities, to reach your customer beyond just the traditional Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, DoorDash.
Great, thanks, Mark. Paul, I know you're trying something with your staff, as I understand it. Is that still the case, and how is that going?
I could rant all day long about why you shouldn't use third-party delivery systems. I blatantly refuse to use them. When we experienced our first lockdown, we had to lay off a lot of our staff, and fortunately it wasn't for very long, and we got a chance to bring a lot of them back, and we had to face that again the second time around here. I just couldn't bear to go down to a skeleton crew and then rely on third-party delivery systems that continue to fail time and time again, while taking 30% of your business or 30% of your sale, and then passing the buck to you when something went wrong with the customer experience. So I just couldn't do it. So we do it ourselves. So we operate our POS systems, our ShopKeep, and then we have online ordering through Gloria Food. And then we use an app called Order Lord that tracks our drivers, and our drivers are our service staff. Our drivers are our support staff, and when they are not busy driving, they're in the kitchen helping with preparation or stamping bags or loading bags, whatever they need to do. There's work to be done, and they appreciate the fact that they're still able to have a job and provide for their family. It's not exactly what they want to be doing, but it's worked for them, and it allows us to keep them employed. And most importantly for me, it allows us to be in control of the customer experience. So we can dictate, when the driver's heading out, we keep track of where they are in the experience, when the stuff has arrived. And if there's an issue, it's our driver we're dealing with. We're not having to deal with a third-party delivery system that is slow to respond and slow to find a solution for the customer. So I'm very much against using that, and it can be done as an independent. It's really easy. It costs me, I think it's just about $275 to $300 a month for those two services between Order Lord and Gloria Food. They're easy to use, and we keep all of the revenue, which is important, especially right now.
Oh, that's great. Those are new vendors to me, so we'll have to definitely check them out. And thanks for mentioning that. We could spend a lot of time just, I think, digging into just that model alone. But for the purposes of this conversation, and as we kind of near the end of this discussion and our time together, I am curious, as we think forward about ghost kitchens, I want to ask each of you guys this question, what does a year from now look like in this particular service model? And what do you guys think 5 years looks like for the ghost kitchen service model? I'll start with Amina on this one. I'm curious what your take is.
So I do think that this model is going to continue. I think that as dine-in reopens, as the pandemic ends, there's definitely going to be, a shift. People want experiences. They want to go back into restaurants for sure. But I think that from what I've seen, it's definitely has a place like within the repertoire. And we've had some restaurants that have created some awesome brands that have people that love them, and they're going to continue to stay and basically be part of that restaurants group. For example, I think what Paul touched on is something that I agree with as well. I think that delivery networks have existed prior to the third parties in local places. They've been, we've seen it here with local delivery networks that are not commission based, that have been delivering things for the elderly. And so we've seen some restaurants kind of tap into them as the end kind of delivery partner. And then from a data standpoint, being able to kind of like know your guests. So I think in terms of where we are now versus 5 years, I think that, restaurant operators will be kind of leveraging the model, knowing who their customers are, continuing to use this as ways to test new concepts. And then, if they are really successful, like what Paul's seen, then spin them up into brick and mortar spaces. So I don't think that these models are going to die at all. I think they're going to be, part of what restaurant operators can use, and continue to be a way that you can test things and try things out for a lower, entry cost. And then if they are really great, then add them. And if they should be a brick and mortar space, you can then kind of open those up for sure.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of great ways for ghost kitchens to scale. And I think that is probably going to be a really interesting avenue for a lot of operators. Mark, why don't I turn to you next? I'm curious, in your space, what do you think it looks like in the future?
Well, I think, as Amina sort of said, I think, there's always going to be a demand for, the experience of going out. But ultimately, delivery isn't going away. More than ever, I think people are demanding convenience. And, one of the ways they can get convenience is by delivery, and is by ghost kitchens, be it my concept or Paul's concept, to lump menus together, be it again national brands or internal brands, so that consumers have choice all at once for us to make it easy for them. The pandemic and the lockdowns have taught everybody that convenience is something that is attainable, and delivery is a viable option to get whatever it is they need. And so it'll be up to us, again, either operating national brands through third-party delivery, or smaller local brands through their own delivery. People are always going to demand convenience right now, and there's going to be a large segment of population who, while they like experience, they're not always going to go out. They're going to want to get their food or their drink whenever they want it, when they want it, from who they want. And so again, I don't think that the model of a ghost kitchen is going to go away. It might adapt over time because the market's always changing, but there's always going to be a demand, I think, going forward for for delivery and for convenience. Our largest demographic right now are younger millennials, anywhere between 18 to 30. And, funnily enough, they have the least amount of money, but they do the most ordering. And so as they get older and as they get into
living in their mom's basement.
Yeah, as they get older and as their income goes up, this is the only way they're going to know to order food, is the convenience of delivery. So again, I think the market is only going to get more and more entrenched in people's minds, and it's up to operators, like Paul, like us, to find different brands and in different ways to deliver a great consumer experience through delivery. But in general, we're not going backwards. The market is here to stay for delivery, and not just pizza, but for everything.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I would agree too, and I just think about like my ordering patterns and just how convenient it has been, and I do miss going out, and I'm going to want that. But man, the convenience of having everything at my doorstep over the past year has really changed my mindset and made my life so easy. Paul, I think about you a lot with this question in terms of like, you have brick and mortar locations, you're testing out these ghost kitchen concepts. What does the future look like for your current concepts like your brick and mortar and for your ghost kitchens? What do you see your path forward as?
Well, listening to you guys talk, I'm feeling very depressed right now. We sort of live in I don't know, you're right. I mean, convenience is key. And we have people pick our groceries for us. We have toilet paper delivered to our house. I mean, we won't go to Tim Hortons or Starbucks. We have it delivered to our house through a third-party delivery app and pay far too much money for it. Yeah, this is the world we live in now. It's really it's kind of frightening. I mean, I'm kind of thankful that I'm on the downslope of my career, and hopefully I've got 10 or 15 years left where people still enjoy dining. But it'll be very curious to see how these millennials evolve over the next 10 or 15 years, and see if they come to appreciate the experience of going out with friends and interacting and socializing and taking in a food experience versus simply going on their phone and placing an order and having no interaction with anyone as they guzzle their food in front of their smartphone. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I definitely agree that I think ghost kitchens are here to stay. With that said, I think the market is becoming quickly saturated, and I think a lot of these guys will fall by the wayside as we come to find the brands we trust and kind of do away with the brands that we don't trust. And but yeah, I think they're here to stay, unfortunately, and I think it's it's sort of an adapt or die time for restaurants as a whole, and there will still be a place for few small independent restaurants or people to go out and dine and have a unique experience, but I think they're going to become less the norm and more the exception.
Yeah, Paul, don't lose hope. Like, I cannot wait to get out and spend time with my friends and have a cocktail. Yeah. I think there's going to be pent up demand as these four walls close in on us over the next, 8 weeks for sure. So, I think people will return to brick and mortar. I just think it's accelerated, off premise too. So to your point, like, it's an interesting time for restaurants. So just think about, how the pandemic is going to shift behaviors. And so your perspectives have been just amazing today. And I want to say thank you to the three of you. You guys have shared a lot of great insights with our audience. And I honestly just can't say thank you enough. So, for everybody on the call, let's say thanks to Paul and Mark and Amina for their time today, and to Gordon Food Service for hosting this, and Back of House for sponsoring. We've learned a lot from our operators and from Sociavore today, and then Gordon Food Service can help you find some of the things that we've talked about in terms of packaging. They can help consult on some of these issues. And Back of House, you can find vendors like Sociavore. So please go check them out and make sure that as you have questions, you reach out to the experts at Back of House and Gordon Food Service. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.